will seem like no time has passed at all. And yet, now they can see me in my weird frog painting.
I don't know if I would have noticed that painting without you mentioning it.
Well, I think that when we did the other video, I had my webcam slightly further to the side, so it wasn't quite in frame. But let's see.
I love him.
What other props? Now I'll never really get it straight again. Oh no. This is what everyone's doing.
I kind of forgot about Weezing and Fortress. I actually really like King of Mistakes team.
Alright, I'll fix this later. Yeah, I really like this team too. I think that what I especially like about this team is I feel like Mabosstiff, Breloom, and Salamence just have a really good combination of what they're all trying to do, complementing each other. Like I feel like if you have Breloom,
Are we recording again?
Yes, we are live. So me messing with this picture is an integral part of the video now. Oh, I see why it's not working, because I was... No. What am I doing? I feel like Mabosstiff, Breloom, and Salamence all have enough overlap in what they're trying to accomplish that they will be able to really successfully be able to break down the common checks to all of them. Kind of the situation I'm imagining is there's really, like, when you're getting ready for Breloom, you have to bring very specific checks. You have to bring something that either can absorb sleep, like a grass type, or something with goggles, or you have to accept that something is going to get put to sleep. Wow, I really feel like things put up. Or, you know, you get swept by Breloom that has Sub and Spore, which also happens quite a lot. And I feel like the right double into something like Mabosstiff or Salamence could really help pin something that doesn't want to be in against them, because Breloom forces so many switches. Mabosstiff especially, you know, you run Choice Band Mabosstiff or something, you get it in on a grass type, which is supposed to absorb sleep from Breloom, and suddenly something has to switch into basically a, you know, adaptability boosted crunch.
Right. A staked out crunch.
Yeah, exactly. The big dog crunch. I think similarly, like Salamence, you know, it benefits from a lot of the things being put to sleep that want to be able to check Breloom. Like, you know, we don't have it in the tier, but like Skarmory. Skarmory, good thing switching to Breloom, but it might just wind up being a sleep sack. Skarmory being asleep is great for Salamence.
Oh yeah, come in, Dragon Dance, and just kind of go to town, right?
Exactly. So that kind of, I think that there's a lot of good synergy there. I think Empoleon, you know, great typing. It has Roost, which I think Empoleon is going to be one of the best walls in this tier, I think, which is so weird to say, but it's got good typing,
I totally agree.
good stats. It has reliable recovery. It can't be poisoned. It gets stealth.
Got rock.
Turn. Yeah, it's going to be great. Rabambi, I think,
and it hits mildly hard too. Like there is nothing to scoff at. Empoleon's one of the Pokemon that I thought about, and I'm very excited to see like pop off.
Yeah, it can be a sweeper. You know, it can run agility, Pataiberry kind of set. Swords Dance, Steel Wing. That's not a real set.
Steel Wing.
Rabambi, I think
it's viable. It's a good move, but it's still Steel Wing.
Rabambi, when I drafted it with the intention of running webs, but it's so good at just being a special attacker and pivot, and it's so fast that I feel like even if the webs never you can quite get working, like just having the threat of webs is good to constrain your opponent's
you always got to be ready for webs.
Yeah, and then just running it as like a Scarf, Specs, whatever guy, you get a lot of value out of. Weezing, I think, is good in its niche. I think that it's really hard to deal with for a lot of teams, only having the one weakness from like a not especially good type. Meloetta, you know, very bulky, hits hard, can pivot. I still don't know how Relic Song works. I'm probably not gonna learn.
Same. I don't. So I'm glad it's not in my division because it's just one pokey fact I don't need.
Yeah, and I think Golem is fine. I think the Golem is a good, you know, sturdy.
For 2 points, not bad.
Stealth
not
rock,
bad.
blow up on something, you know, who cares? It's good.
There are way worse 2-point picks than Golem, I think.
I think Embor will be fun to watch, but I think, and I'm sure that the Bose brothers know it's not that good. Like, I think that they will make it be good.
They're about to riot in the streets right now.
I think that they know. I think that they know that there's certainly better Terramons they could pick. But I don't think that they care, and I think that they're going to make it work regardless. I think that it packs enough of a punch, and the rest of the team is good enough that they're going to be able to find ways to make it shine. Were this me, unless I was dead set on Embor, I would probably grab something else. I don't know. Flapple, Flamigo, I think are better. I don't think it really matters.
Oh,
Like,
we're not talking about it, but I don't like Hustle. I don't think Pokemon that have to rely on Hustle are any good over the course of 8 games. You know what I mean?
I could never imagine missing, so that's not a problem that I can really relate to in my
You should
life.
take your lottery level luck and draft only Hustle Pokemon next time.
That would be funny. I'll sure.
Funny is the right word for it, Alex.
Yeah.
Funny maybe for you.
Fortress, I think, is good in isolation. I think it's a bit tough in context of this team. I think that you already have, a couple fire liabilities. I think that you've already got the bugs.
That's my big fault with this team is that it loses to Flamethrower just outright.
Yeah, and it's like
nothing on this team wants to take a Flamethrower. I mean, yeah, obviously Salamence and Embor do, but like, I don't know, nothing else does.
Yeah, and you don't really want Salamence unless you're running like a defensive set.
Mm-hmm.
Like you want it to have the bulk to be able to get 1 or 2 DDs off, and if you're taking random Flamethrowers, then you could get burned.
Especially when it could be a burn too. Yeah.
So I think Fortress feels to me like there was a lot that was drafted that works really well together, and then they thought, well, we need a spinner, and he's the last one, so let's take him.
I actually think I like Fortress more than Weezing, though. I think they cover almost similar roles sometimes. I don't know, maybe not, but I think the fact that Fortress gets Volt Switch makes it very appealing.
Yeah, I can see that too.
But it is very passive.
It's very passive, and I feel like it's a lot of the time going to be doing a similar job to Empoleon. While still having...
Come in, be a Steel type, throw down a hazard, leave.
Yeah, but it's not going to do it as well. And it will be able to spin, but... I mean, I think with Salamence and Breloom and Mabosstiff and Embor, like, you probably don't want to get into the hazard game too much anyway. Like, you don't... Fortress, to me, feels like a really passive, like, hazard stack sort of guy. And Salamence, Breloom, and Mabosstiff and Embor feel like I'm going to get these in on the right mon and get a kill. It just feels like a little bit of a mismatch in terms of what the team's trying to accomplish. So I'd probably get rid of Fortress.
I don't know. It could be trying to force defog. If I hazard stack everything, they have to defog, and then Empoleon comes in, and I suddenly am in a winning position.
Maybe it feels like one step too convoluted for me. I think.
I don't necessarily disagree, but I can see where the logic comes from. Anyway.
Yeah, I can see where this pick probably came from. I just think if I'm looking at the team, probably the weak spot. Probably grab another mon, even if it's not a spinner. I think that. You have enough immediate offense, like with Salamence and Breloom, that, if they're spending turns setting up hazards, they're probably about to get 6-0'd by Dragonite and Salamence.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah. So even something like, trying to see what else might be good. All these 6-point mons are kind of hard to make work. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else you would... or place on that Brute Bonnet, just go hard on the Spore. Yeah, I don't even know if there's any other good 6-point mons to swap that out for. But at a glance, that's what I'd be taking a look at.
Ambipom's not terrible. I don't know if he needs the speed per se, but it couldn't hurt actually to have a dedicated. I'm gonna pivot.
Yeah.
There are options. There are definitely options. Are they good? I don't know. But there are Pokemon still on the board.
Yep, there are Pokemon still on the board. Yeah, Ambipom I think actually I like a lot. If there were good special attackers, I would say maybe getting one of those would be good so that you're not leaning as hard on Empoleon and Meloetta. Because the rest of this team is very... I mean, Mence can run special. It's good at special, but it's also... Dragon Dance is so appealing, especially in format where Mence is one of the best guys. So, yeah.
Mince is a bit of a trap too. I objectively think it is top 3 Pokemon in this format, like no question. But I think you can really struggle with like, so not even losing the rock paper scissors, but thinking like, oh, it's this set that I want to do this week, when you actually needed the bulky intimidate set, or you just needed to shove Dragon Dance down their throat. I think it can be easy to get that set wrong and have it be a less useful Pokemon. You know?
Yeah, I think a bit like with Iron Leaves on your team, like
Mm-hmm.
one of the best ways to use Mints in draft, I think, is just run a Dragon Dance set and not think too hard about it, because
Like, what are you gonna do about it? You know?
exactly, you know it's going to be good, and then you can just sort of build around that as an idea. Because even if someone brings a check to it, they're going to have to devote a lot of their team building, unless they have a very specific counter. They're going to have to devote a lot of their team to it anyway. So even if you don't get a lot of utility out of it, just by having it there, you're like forcing them to play a certain way.
The Moltres effect. I also think that you will literally have to dedicate some amount of percentage to it as well. You know, some like in-game percentage, whether it's a full Pokemon or the majority of one.
Yeah.
You know, it if it trades, that's probably not ideal, but it can almost always trade with something. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Good team, very good team. Yeah, there are. I mean, as with every team, with every draft ever, there are improvements that could be made. But I think this is like a scary team. You know.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to play it.
Yeah.
Actually, I do because I have Infernape, but
And I think conversely, like if I was given this team, I would be pretty happy with it.
yeah. If we randomized every team and then divvied them out or whatever, I would not be upset if this is the team I pulled.
Mm-hmm.
So hit it up, Com. You got this. I'm excited to see Brobo in full force.
Yeah, me too. I think with Robert and a lot of the Mandible guys behind him, it'll be fun to watch.
Definitely. I think it'll be hype anyway. I expect him to do well, and I actually think he's in my playoff ranking. But I think it'll be like there will be really fun games anyway, and I think all of the games should be relatively close.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, moving on to Chad's team. So you liked this team quite a bit. So why don't you tell me why you?
I did. I think it's a good team. I think this team could build a deck really well. It's got all the tools to like go to AJ's house and build him a deck outside. You know what I mean? No, it's hard to dislike any team with 3 tier 1s, especially 3 really good tier 1s. Team kind of gets railed by Fairy, but I think at some level every team kind of gets railed by Fairy. Zapdos Galar is a tricky Pokemon. I think it is stellar, but I think to be effective, it has a timer on it. You know, it can only do so much damage before it kind of kills itself. I actually think Necrozma is the star of this team and will be the hardest thing to prep for. Sure, Zapdos Galar, you either prep for it or you don't, or like you can't rather, and it close combats you or it Braves Birds you with its Scarf First Band and you might just die. But the set diversity of Necrozma, as we've seen other people use in the past, is going to be way scarier. I adore Muck A. I think it's an amazing Pokemon. I think Terra Delphox is really cool, but I think everything else is okay. However, I think you can bring those 5 Pokemon, the 3 tier 1s, Muck A and Terra Delphox, and be so set every single week. You know, that is an extremely difficult team for the majority of teams in the division to even, in a vacuum stack up against, not including Chad as a player or as a builder. I don't rate Rhydon. I don't really rate Granbull. Maybe he'll get some rattled sets. I think Rotom Frost is kind of mid. Cam really wants Bramble Gas, but it's okay. Yeah. But those top 3 Pokemon are excellent. I wish the Steel had the Fairy Resist, because Delphox isn't going to have the Fairy Resist, and it's not going to take a Fairy hit anyway.
Yeah.
I guess it could with like Calm Mind or something like that, but that's not its role. And same thing with Muck. It comes in with the AV or whatever, and it takes it, but not as well as obviously it resisted. Necrozma, man, when Peter had it that one season, and it was just like every week was a different nonsense set, and it's got atomize or auto whatever it's called. It's got rocks. It's got photon geyser.
Yeah.
It's got swords dance. I think it's got calm mind or nasty plot as well. Like, it has too much stuff. It's got recovery.
I wonder because I haven't looked at this at all. I wonder how many moves it actually keeps.
That's a good point. I have not considered that myself. I am just going off the previous experience that we have.
Yeah, looks like it still gets Dragon Dance.
That was the other big one, yeah.
Yeah. Iron Defense.
Mm-hmm.
I think Calm Mind.
Looks like both screens, Calm Mind.
Moonlight. Yeah. Stealth Rock. So
it's the coverage as well. I see Power Gem in there, which obviously doesn't miss. We see Stored Power. We see X Scissor. He's got the tools. He's got some excellent tools. And Terra Blast. Not that it needs it, but it gets it.
Yeah,
which is dumb, because not every Pokemon gets Terra Blast.
Yeah, there's a lot about this team that I like. I think that there's a lot of kind of sneaky speed here too, like Cinccino and Delphox. I think Cinccino, can help clean up after Zapdos G, takes down swinging with Brave Bird, whatever physical check with Rocky Helmet is.
Right.
Eating its attacks, Zapdos G maybe takes down 1.5 physical checks, and Cinccino cleans up from there with its really good speed set. Delphox 2, I think, even though there's some overlap with the psychic types, I think that because they're different enough that I think they complement each other well. Delphox can run Nasty Plot.
Even if it wasn't Terra, I think the overlap would be fine,
Yeah, agreed. And you can run Terra Dark or Fairy or whatever's going to work in a specific matchup. Poison if you just really need to nuke a Fairy type. Muck-A I think is good. I think throw Muck-A in any team and you're going to find a way to use it. I agree that these three are kind of Rotom Scramble right on. Like, maybe there's a matchup where one of them seems good and you bring it, but I think that they're almost always just going to be on the bench. I think that you've got better options for pretty much anything else. I don't really see Bramblegast, especially myself. I know that it's a relatively fast spinner, but it seems very frail, pretty mid-typing. I don't know. I don't really see it, why Chad and Cam are really on Bramblegast, but maybe I'll be proven wrong.
It's hard to tell with Cam if it's a meme or if he's just hyper-fixated.
Yeah.
That's with everything. I genuinely don't know. Cam is an anomaly to me. Bramblegast seems like it'd be cool, but every other spinner gets a dark move anyway, and it's so frail. It blocks Rapid Spin, it blocks a lot of the fighting type moves and stuff like that, but then you just eat the knockoff and I guess you die,
Yeah. One thing I will say about this team too is I don't think that it has a lot of longevity. Nick Rosma can run Morning Sun, but Muck-A, Cinccino, Tauros, Bramblegast, Zapdos G, they're kind of all going down swinging. So I feel like a lot of Chad's games are going to kind of turn into just a sack war, especially with Zapdos G, being the main thing that people are going to need to prep for. Maybe that opens up Necrozma to get in a sweep or something like that. But, Muck-A seems like one of those things that you bring to switch into special attackers, take chip a couple times, get a couple knockoffs, and the net's going to go down. Bramblegast, you switch in to maybe get a spin or two off. Delphox, maybe you get a trick, but it's not. Maybe you get a couple of good Fire Blasts off, but it doesn't have a lot of longevity either. Goodra H, I think, is kind of similar to Muck-A, where super bulky, switch it in, eat a couple hits, throw out a couple heavy slams, eventually go down. So I feel that. Go ahead.
No, please.
So I feel that Chad's team, it's really good, and I think that the 3 12-point Mons are going to be hard to deal with, but I also worry that his team is prone to just getting worn down. Because
I feel like it's a very Chad strategy to win in 20 turns or lose in 20 turns, though. And I feel like since we've seen him play, and since I've personally known him, that's always been his relative game plan.
Yeah, it's a very...
Why make a game go longer? Status? I don't need it, dude. I'm just going to keep clicking buttons.
Yeah, and if the team is better than yours, then it's going to work.
He usually cooks up one pretty heat set that blows open a big hole. It's not going to 6-0 sometimes, but it breaks the opponent's team down and lets Zapdos Galar, go through. Terra Delphox could be Fairy Magician every time, and it can destroy this format. I think it's actually the sneakiest, best Terramon. Jolteon, excellent. I think Chestnut for the fans. Typho H, like there are some really good Terramons, but Delphox actually could be the best one with the most utility. We talked about it before. Jolteon is coming, and it's going to be ice, water, grass. If you're feeling crazy about the ground weakness and things like that, but I think Terra Delphox has more flexibility and could sometimes be scarier.
Yeah, I don't know that I would put it. I would maybe put it in the top 5. I think probably Chestnut, Jolteon. I would say Mismagius is like a bit better at doing what Delphox also wants to do. But yeah, I think it's definitely up there in terms of Pokemon that's already pretty good without Terra. With Terra, it just becomes a lot more versatile.
Just hold on to your items, man. He is going to be stealing items.
If I were Chad, I would maybe look to get rid of Tauros Aqua. I feel that it's just like you've already got your fighting type, you've already got your other fast physical attacker. Maybe run like an Intimidate bulky kind of set, but I don't know.
Where's the bulky water, Chad?
Yeah, where's
you need a bulkier water.
You need a bulkier water. Again, it's like what 6-point mons even are there?
Yeah, exactly.
You get Mousehold just for the real, I'm leaning in this strategy kind of thing. But yeah, and maybe there's just not too much in there. Maybe you could get rid of some of the 2-point or one of the 2-point guys and pick something else up. Salazzle.
I think it's similar to what you're saying. Salazzle could be good, but I just at this point in the draft, I'm really glad we did one large draft instead of 2 individual ones because I kind of like that there's not a whole lot on the board. The teams are the teams. But I agree. Tauros isn't my favorite pick here, and I don't know. Granbull and Rotom Frost at least seem like they have some use cases.
Yeah,
he's gonna prove me wrong, but I think Rhydon's kind of whatever. Brambleghast is kind of whatever.
Yeah, and I think in Team Builder each week, Chad's gonna get these 5 guys: the Zapdos, Necrozma, Goodra, Muk, and Delphox, and it's like, is Tauros really gonna be the 6th one? Probably
right.
Would rather the other guys, even for some niche reason like Rotom. So, maybe.
But you're gonna assume that he's bringing X, Y, and Z, and then you're gonna see the team preview, and your heart is just gonna start racing because it's the 5 Pokemon you didn't want it to be.
Yeah, you're gonna see these 6 and just wonder what's happening.
Is he in full meltdown? I personally think that Chad has the best team in the division, and will get first in his division.
Okay,
I'm hoping that this pressure crumbles him. That this pressure is too much, and that me putting it on right now will lead to his downfall. But he's got good mentality or something dumb like that, man. It's annoying.
I don't think he cares. I think that's right. He just doesn't care. It
works well for him.
I don't think that he's got the best team. I think that he's solidly in the top 3, but I think that he's got a good chance of winning the division just because the ways in which his team is good, I think will help him win his favored matchups harder.
I think it's also a very Chad team. Like we were talking about, it is a team that is designed to not even necessarily be HO, but to be at least pseudo HO, where he can still just yes, Choice Bend, Brave Bird. What are you gonna do about it? Oh, your crappy little electric type? Yeah, it still dies.
Yeah, I think that Chad's team is. I would say it's maybe weaker than, for instance, Baby Bro's team. But I think that Chad's chances of misplaying with it are a lot lower.
Mm-hmm. And there's a beautiful simplicity to it, and that's not to say that he can't make it complex and do cool sets. But if he wants to, he can make it very straightforward, and it's still going to be an absolute demon of a team.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I think he's among the better battlers because of that dumb not caring mentality or something like that.
All right, let's move on to Oswell. So we got the hard sub.
You have to tell us how to pronounce it. If it's Oswell, Oswell, Oswelius. I don't know. Who knows?
Oswelius Maximus. It's a hard sun team. It's very clearly a hard sun team. It's got its one strategy. What are your initial impressions for, the full? We're doing it. We got the Torkoal, the Venusaur, the Terra Typhlosion, the Lilligant.
I definitely have thoughts. I mentioned a second ago, you're going to be running Chlorophyll anyway, but relying on a Pokemon that has Hustle is problematic. By the numbers, it just does not work out, And unless you're Alex 16, you do not hit your Hustle when you need to, and you hit it every other time. But when push comes to shove, you're missing. I love Torkoal. I obviously it is a sunsetter, but it is fantastic roll compression. It's got sun, it's got spins, it's got rocks,
Mm-hmm.
it's got lava plume. I think it gets wisp. It can do some stuff. I wish it was better, but for sun and the sun tax, like it's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, gets eruption. So
Hmm
that's fine.
I think a lot of other people like Lilligant H more than I do, but I think it's a cool Pokemon. I used it in Legends Arceus, and it was one of the mainstays of my team. It was fun. Um, I feel bad about Ditto because I feel like everyone who has played before knows that Ditto is tiered so highly because we just don't really want to play against Ditto, not because it's a very good Pokemon that's worth 10 points. And as someone who's responsible for tiering it, I don't feel wonderful about that. But I think it's a learning process.
I actually disagree.
Okay, well, fair enough. Fair enough.
So I think that kind of similar to why I'm so high on like the Frisk Mons. Ditto at 10, like it's a lot of points. But I think that you just immediately get
Information
so
is power.
much information about your opponent's team by learning exact sets right off the rip. That if you have a bit of a slower team that can work towards, a 30 or 40 turn game plan, that information disparity can really, really help. That said, I don't think that anyone's really made Ditto work, so this is all just theory about what could be good. But
Right.
I mean, I ran the one Friskmon in VGC, and admittedly that's VGC where items are a lot more important.
And
you
it's
get two
it's double the
events.
information, right?
Yeah, and even like you learn 50% of your team's items immediately, which is pretty
hmm
huge. But Ditto gives you an entire set immediately, and from that you can infer an item, I think, pretty reasonably. And you might
Unless
get
it's
in.
not a set that you want it to be, and then you're potentially scarfed in a boosting set, and you're like, well, that's a free switch for them, and now they get the boost. You know what I mean?
True, true. So I think it's hard to make work. I do think that I think it's potentially extremely helpful, and then
hmm
occasionally it's set up fodder and you get beat by a Regirock. Um, so, you got that too.
Unfortunately for Oswald, I'd say this is probably pound for pound the worst team. I think that Bisharp and Sun is tricky. Obviously, you need a steel, but a steel type, a strong steel type in Sun is problematic. Venusaur is great, but you kind of know what it's going to do. At best, it's going to grow. Otherwise, it's a mediocre special wall. Snorlax is okay. I don't think Lantern can cut it in RU. I don't think Colossal is very good. Typhlosion H is awesome. I'm excited to see that go. And I don't really think Thwackey fits all that much. I guess it's to get rid of like Earthquake or to nerf Earthquake a little bit, but the terrain doesn't seem as essential to me at the moment.
Yeah,
And maybe that's a bit harsh, but that's how I'm feeling at the moment when I'm looking at the team right now.
I think that I actually quite like the Sun core part of this team. Looking at these five, Typhlosion, and a little bit Snorlax. I agree that I think Lantern, Thwackey, and Colossal just don't really cut it or are already doing things that you're getting from other mons. Like Colossal and Torkoal
hmm
are very similar. I think, with 6 points left, there's not that much you can do for switching out
Of
Lantern and
course,
Thwackey.
of course.
But I do think that, like, in terms of, pound for pound Sun team and RU, this team is pretty hard to deal with, especially, I think, with the two sleep powder users, potentially. Victory Dance on Lilligant, Growth on Venusaur. I think that compared to Peter's team, like, the other hard weather team that we've got to compare it to, I think just by compressing behind, like, your very obvious Sun abusers, I think that the pure weather strategy of this will be a pretty good strategy. That said,
hmm
we've had pure weather teams before. Like I think Chris ran a pure Sun team last season and it did not do especially well. I think Eden's run pure Sun before and
hmm
struggled to make it work. So I think that it's hard in draft just because before you even.
Well, you know it's coming.
Exactly.
You know what the plan is. And that it kind of has to be that plan.
Yeah.
Pool is a weather believer too, but
Yeah, but I think unlike our last draft or the last two drafts where, you were still relying on, Lilligant and Venusaur, but the power level was a lot higher overall. I think RU is a place where this actually could just be strong enough on its own to work if it's piloted correctly. Maybe using Ditto to, get rid of a specific check to something, Bisharp to revenge kill something. I like Bisharp on the team. I think that, obviously having fire weaknesses is tough. Venusaur is
Not
also weak to
ideal.
fire. Lilligant's weak to
So
fire.
is Lilligant. Mm-hmm.
Does Typhlosion H get Flash Fire? I can't remember.
I believe Typhlosion does. So
Yeah,
I
I
want
bet
to
Typhlosion
assume
does.
so.
No, it gets Frisk.
Oof.
Another
Well, it gets
Frisk.
Frisk.
Yeah, I guess
Frisk.
I mean, you probably want to run Blaze, but still. So
And I have to say, eruptions in Sun sound terrifying.
they do.
Unless you have a flash fire, whatever you're putting in front of it is taking a fat amount of damage. And if it's scarfed, then like it probably just kills it, you know?
Yeah,
And there's counterplay around that and all sorts of stuff like that. But unless you have a flash fire Pokemon, that is going to burn through some people.
Yep. And Snorlax, you've got that can run thick fat to help eat some of those fire moves too.
Good point.
Special fire moves especially. My concern for a team like this is that Torkoal, I feel like I would almost prefer Ninetales on this team, because even though Torkoal is great roll compression, it can do a lot of things. If I'm
got a lot of pressure on it.
If I'm preparing for this team too, like I'm just gonna lead something that has Rain Dance, and if they lead Torkoal, then I'm just gonna immediately get rid of the weather.
Mm-hmm. And then they're on a huge back foot, and you just start scalding, you know?
Exactly. And I think that, something like Ninetales that can pivot, you maybe can switch around a little bit more. Maybe you run Sunny Day and then you pivot. So who knows? I think that you just have more options to kind of get around the very obvious problem of them getting rid of the weather.
Lack of hazards and removal seem kind of tricky as well.
Yeah, because you want to run Boots on the Torkoal, but then you also want to run the Sunrock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I do like the weather core portion of this. I think Torkoal, Lilligant, and Venusaur just by themselves exert so much pressure on a team, especially when they have the potential of putting a check to sleep and then setting up on it. So I think that it's got potential. I probably... Go ahead.
Bisharp is really important because Lilligant and Venusaur are both weak to Psychic.
Yeah, true.
And I kind of forgot about that, but that is pretty key because that's an easy out for both of those Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. That said, I do think that just because it's a little one-dimensional in terms of what it's doing, and some of these Pokemon are just kind of frankly useless on the team and are just there because they needed to hit to 10, I do put it towards the bottom of my ranking here as well. Not the bottom team. I think Stopburn's team has more problems, and I think Peter's team has more problems. But yeah, I think being overly reliant on one strategy and draft can wind up being kind of tough.
Time to put some DVDs in the pool.
What are your initial impressions of this team?
I actually had a pretty hard time knowing where to put him. I think he's got some really cool stuff that has versatility. I think Volcanion is relatively unexplored. I mean, I know people have used it before, but I'd like to see someone like make it their kill leader. You know what I mean? I'm not sure that's going to happen here, but it's tricky because you gotta wear your Tims all game or most games, but I think it has potential to pop off. Torterra is in a similar position, and I think those two pair well together. As long as Pula does not switch into threats with Mimikyu, I think Mimikyu's really cool. But when you switch him with Mimikyu and break the disguise, it's like what's the point, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't pack too hard of a punch.
And we were talking about that. He and I were talking about this yesterday. I do not really like Umbreon. I think it's a good Pokemon, but I think it is so passive. I don't really care for his spinner in Hitmonlee. I don't think you really want to be taking Rapid Spin on Hitmonlee pretty much ever, especially if it's your Terra Pokemon. You want to be unburdening the whole time, and Terra Electric unburden and just go to town. Volbeat's okay. Oricorio is a really tricky mon because obviously he can bring whichever one he wants, but it's still Oricorio. Guess it gets Quiver Dance, and that's tricky. Love, Drag, Algae, Bronzong's okay. Those are my initial thoughts. I think it's a good team, but I don't think it's my favorite team.
Yeah, my first thought is that this team is really slow.
Yes, it is fast, without boosting.
Without boosting, he does have the webs.
It's okay. It's
option,
not super fast.
But then you've got like Torterra, Bronzong, Trigalgi, Volcanion. Umbreon. Its speed almost doesn't matter.
Mimikyu's only 96.
Yeah. And then so your fast mons are Mimikyu and Galvantula, which don't have a ton of offensive presence by themselves. And even if you
Hmm.
get Webs up, I mean, Webs isn't really making Dragalge outspeed anything. Um,
No, maybe Volcanion, but not Dragalge.
exactly. So I think that it's missing a bit of that. Here's my fast guy that you need to deal with effect that a lot of teams have. Um,
He
I
has to boost to do it, and I think Torterra, even with the Shell Smash, just is not fast enough sometimes.
yeah, and getting Torterra to get a Shell Smash off without being able to Terra is tricky just because most people can probably just find a way to slot Ice Shard in or something like that to make sure they don't get swept by Torterra. Or I think
Hmm.
too, if it's obvious that Torterra is going to Shell Smash or that it's going to be a good option in your team, having a Mirror Herb on something is going to be really helpful.
Phasing, stuff like
Phasing,
that.
yep. Um, Hitmonlee, I agree. I think it's a bit out of place, especially without a way to guarantee get off on Burden. It's pretty
Uh huh.
frail. I mean, I think it's what um, I think that it's
It's
maybe
very frail.
physical defense is, or its special defense is okay, but base 50 hit points and 53 defense, it almost doesn't matter. 120 attack is good. I mean, 120 attack with Terra in RU is
That's
pretty
phenomenal.
strong. Um,
And Sword Dance,
and Sword Dance.
great stabs and high jump kick and close combat if he wants to take Reckless instead. Um, your trailer, its attack stat is fantastic. Speed isn't abysmal, even with one boost, but not having terrain really, I think, makes it feel out of place.
Yeah, and there's not really terrain options either, which makes it a bit hard to enable Hitmonlee. I mean, there's like Pincurchin,
Hmm.
and that's about it. Um, actually, if Pula wanted to go more the terrain route, he could do something like pick up a Raichu A instead of maybe Galvantula. He could maybe pick up Pincurchin and find some way to make that work. I think with Umbreon to kind of pivot around and wish things,
Hmm.
Bronzong to get some hazards, that kind of idea could work for this team. I think right now, though, the team overall, it just feels a bit slow. It feels bulky, but without a way of really wearing down teams. Um, and Umbreon and Bronzong are hard to get through, but they're not accomplishing that much by themselves.
Right, right. Um, at least in my personal experience, if I see Bronzong, I'm like, sweet. That's that could be worse, you know.
Yeah, it's like something I'm not really afraid of at all, and I'll get through it eventually.
Hmm. Umbreon is a great wish passer. Don't get me wrong, but I watched a replay that he showed, and I think it got taunted first turn and then tricked with the choice specs, and it was like, cool. Well, this is a useless Pokemon now.
Yep.
Um, yeah, it can just be tough. It can be tough.
So yeah, I would like to pick up some speed, maybe find a little way to better utilize Hitmonlee. But I think Hitmonlee is, I mean, it's a good Terra Pokemon just because it does have a strong offensive presence. Strong offensive presence plus Terra can never really go wrong with that.
I saw Chad blow up a league with Hitmonlee as a Terra,
Did he have
and it was very
grassy terrain?
impressive. Sorry,
Did he have grassy terrain?
I think he actually might have gone the Raichu Lola strategy
The
that you were
Raichu
talking
Lola
about.
Pincurchin. I think
Yeah.
it's good. I mean, we saw another. I mean, I forget how many seasons it was ago, but Raichu A plus terrain got like 20 kills. So
Hmm.
I think that
It's a strong Pokemon.
it's strong Pokemon, and it's not too highly. It's 8 points, I think. Something like
8 points. I
that.
think you could drop Oricorio and pick up Pincurchin, trade around for Raichu A, and this would be a very scary team.
Yep, I agree. And then I think if you've got like the strong terrain electric core, and then you've got Volcanion and Umbreon and Bronzong to sort of play that passive game and chip things down, then they start to
Then
seem a
we're
little
cooking.
scarier.
Hmm.
Because then it's like the opponent is constantly switching around trying to avoid getting swept by Raichu, and you're getting off steam eruptions. You're getting your rocks down, and they're taking chip, and
You're getting fat wishes,
exactly. Once you get your rocks down, Umbreon becomes really annoying to deal with. But I think right now there's not that top heavy pressure to enable the slower passive ones.
Hmm. Especially if something resists, like Volcanion. If your dragon comes in and Volcanion can't, I don't even know if it gets Ice Beam, but
No, it doesn't.
if it didn't take Ice Beam, then oof.
Yeah. So yeah, potential for greatness, but I think right now the team is just a little bit feels underwhelming. We did not mention Volbeat, and I think that that's appropriate. Moving on to Nips' team.
Little scamp.
Little scamp.
That is his claim to fame. Is little scamp.
Little scamp. All
Another
right.
Pokemon I've seen do well, but it's just objectively not a good Pokemon.
It's just not that good. Okay. Nips' team. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of, seeing into what has already happened with Bestern getting a 1-0 Nips victory. I don't think that that's too out of place for where we probably place these teams regardless, so it doesn't really impact my perception of this team just because it was such a close
No,
match. But what are your thoughts?
nor mine. I basically had the two of them in the top four, and like I think, especially at this level in our leagues, that anybody can kind of beat anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is objectively a good team. If this team had Gardevoir, then it would be like the most classic Silly Nips team of all time.
Yep.
And that same like comfort pick that Bestern was getting and stuff like that. However, I personally would not draft this team. I don't really like it. Love Gyarados. I think that's kind of cool. I do not like Hydreigon. I wish this team had a tier 1. I think Registeel's okay. I think Espeon's cool in a vacuum, but it's so frail sometimes. And Magic Bounce, it's hard to rely on Magic Bounce when you switch into a move and you just die instead of switching into Stealth Rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Golurk is cool. Tox is cool. I don't think anything else is all that special.
Yeah, I had a bit of the same initial impressions where it's like, at a glance, this team looks really good. It looks like nothing really overlaps too heavily in terms of what it's trying to do. Good spread of types. But I would also never draft like most of these Pokemon. Like I drafted Gyarados and it was fun. I would draft Espeon or Virizion. That's about where I would stop in terms of the rest of these.
I've drafted Espeon before.
Yeah.
I've drafted Hydreigon, and that's why I don't like it.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those Pokemon that you're like, oh, I can't wait to do all this cool stuff with it, and then you die from a stray, draining kiss, or even like a close combat, and you're like, oh, well, okay, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
It just felt underwhelming, and I feel like it has really suffered from power creep. It used to be this absolute demon of a Pokemon, and now it's like, I don't know, fairy moves are pretty common, you know?
Yeah.
Gyarados is really cool, though. I think like Gyarados is going to be a pretty important member of this team.
Yeah, I feel like this team's main strategy is going to be just wearing everything down until it's all in +1 Gyarados range. And then just trying to get a dragon.
Which is totally fair.
Yeah, I think that it's a good strategy. I think it's a good team for it. Registeel and Diancie, they're a little bit more, play the long game, get a couple good hits in, maybe go for a Trick Room sweep if the time is right.
They're both Pokemon that if you do not prepare for their weird body press sets, then like it could just sweep you. Once your Ghost goes down or your Quad Fighting Resist goes down, Lucky Diamond Storm proc or 2, and the game is looking pretty tight now.
Yeah.
Golurk is very Trick Room-y. I've tried to use Trevenant before in a low league, and it's just okay. Harvest strategies are fun, but I just don't think it has the legs to like keep up. You know what I mean?
I think when you've also already got a Slow Ghost, you probably
agreed.
Another one, but
one that's objectively better. I don't.
Yeah.
No, never mind.
And you've also already got a Grass type, so I think the 2-point landscape is a little tough just for anything. Trevenant's definitely one of the better 2-point mons, but I don't think it's going to get a lot of play.
No, I don't expect to see it much. I think Kamala is much more likely to come, and I don't think that's going to come very often either.
Yeah, I think Kamala's fine. Like, it's a good AV spinner. It can't be poisoned because of its ability. So I think that it's fine. You can
do really silly things with Rest Talk and Final Gambit and stuff like
Last
that.
Resort. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. And Typhlosion, I think it's good. Terrifier Eruption, it's strong. It is what it is.
It very much is. We watched arguably its hardest matchup week 1 with something that has Flash Fire. And it just makes it tough, and Terra gives it some options, but it can be kind of one-dimensional.
Yeah. I was surprised that
giving
Terra Grass in that match, personally.
Giving Typhlosion H a third stab is way better than giving Typhlosion a second stab. And I think you can really feel that when you're comparing the two of them.
Yeah, and I think most of the time with this Typhlosion, you're just going to want to throw Terra, Fire, Eruption, and see it's like, can you deal with it or not, kind of thing. Choice specs,
but
sure.
But then you're dealing with the same issue that we talked about before, where you got to bring Espeon or you got to bring Kamala to keep rocks off.
Yeah.
Hydreigon gets defog, but definitely feels like one of those Pokemon that you don't always want to be running it, especially when he's one of your top guys. When he's one of your front end damage guys, and you just need someone to throw down a Draco or U-turn or use his various moves to put yourself in a good position. I don't think you want to be clicking defog too often with him.
Yeah, I agree. So with that all said, we can pull up where we put our individual rankings. So I had Brett's team at the top. I think Brett and Baby Bro they're both my two favorite. In retrospect, I think I do like Chad's team more than Nips's team.
Brother rivalry right there.
Yeah. Well, and then I had Pula. I feel like everything here is good. I think that it could be better. I had Peter, who, even though I have him 6 down here, I think that he has the potential to do really well. Oswell, I had 7 because I do like his son better than I like Stopburns' team. Actually, in retrospect, I think I like Oswell's team a bit better than Peter's.
Ooh.
Just because, yeah.
Sorry, Pete.
Stand by.
Hey, fair enough. No. I'm here for the hype.
Yeah, we're here for the drama.
I just cannot get over how Inteleon's still on the board for this rain team. And it feels like a big oversight.
How many things can I put on the screen at once? Here we go. Okay.
To sort of explain mine a little bit, I think Chad has the best team, and I think he's going to do the best with the team, given the competition. I think Nips can be second in the division if he cares. And this might be harsh. Sorry, buddy. But last season, I felt like he didn't care as much. His life has changed. He's got different things going on, and he was playing. I think maybe because we asked him to, and we needed another person. This season is not any different. We kind of needed one more person. He's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'll play with you guys. It's fine. And I think he's won multiple championships. Like he has the chutzpah, but I don't know if he's going to put in the same effort that a championship team deserves. And I can't fault him for it. Pokemon's just a game. If Peter plays all of his games, I think he'll do really well. Do I think he's going to play all of his games? No. But if he does, I think he's third place. Easy. I'm sorry, Brett. I love you, and I hope you'll prove me wrong. But I have you there. I got Pula there because I think Pula's team is okay. I think those people all have the experience of draft, and I think that will be really, really important for team building and things like that. I think that's, especially the first couple weeks before you get your feet on the ground, I think that's the most important thing, is just having like, okay, here's a general idea of what I think I'm supposed to do. I really like King of Mistakes' team. I played him once before, and I know it was a couple seasons ago. It did not go well for him. I think Robo was on a boat, and he came back, and he was like, what the fuck? What happened? We had a good play. But I think that, newcomers struggle with any sort of competition for the most part. I think you're the exception. But when new people enter a new hobby, it is tough to not have the same information that everyone else has. I would put probably personally Stopburns, because I'm a huge Kleavor stan, and then Oswald for 7 and 8.
Okay. And
also because Stopburns and I are Secret Santa buddies.
Oh, that's sweet. And it feels a bit too like, you having Bestrin at 4 and you having King of Mistakes at 6 isn't necessarily because you think they drafted like teams with obvious flaws. It's just because you really believe in the potential of Nips and Peter. I mean, Chad, you said had the best team.
Indeed.
And the best, you think he'll be, do the best. So
I think he's, in my opinion, I think he's the clear cut in the division. And obviously people can disagree, but that's where I'm at. But you're exactly right. I'm ranking Nips and Peter more as coaches than for their respective teams. I think their teams are good enough that they can make them work. But I think it will require them to make it work. They will not be carried by their team. Their team will be carried by them.
So your overall vibes are that New York is going to show up over Mandeville this season, at least in Lightning.
Unfortunately, that is how it's shaken out, yeah. Maybe I'm just a New York stan.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be honest. We're not doing this to make friends. We're doing this to come up with our accurate, certified, correct rankings. That
being said, it looks like what we do last time, like aggregate. Yeah, I think that's accurate. I'd put Bester in it too.
I think this puts Nips at 3.
Mm-hmm.
King of
Then in
Mistakes.
King of Mistakes, Peter
Let's
somewhere in
see.
there.
Peter is an average of 5. Pula is an average of 5. So, Pula slash Peter. Peter slash Pula. And then 7, I think Oswald just slightly gets the bump over
Mm-hmm.
7.
He gets the nod because you have him a bit higher.
Now, I would love, I mean, we have rated the newcomers pretty low. I would love to be proven wrong and just get
In
absolutely blown up by them. Yes.
So I have a text sheet. I have all of my notes on like an 8-page text doc
Mm-hmm.
detailing everyone's teams, their placements, like everything I could think of. And in each newcomer's thing, I made it very clear that I would love to be proven wrong. I think that there is so much potential here, and all I can do is go off of my previous experience. That was really how I decided to do my predictions. But I think it would be so exciting if they came out and were like, you know what, you guys can suck my dick. I'm pretty good at this, and just made big waves. And I think it's totally possible. Like we said a second ago, you did it your first season. Yeah, so I'm very excited. I think this is going to be a really cool season. Lucky number 7, all that good stuff, man.
I think it's pretty true too that whenever you're in a server like this with a limited amount of people, 10, 20 people, you really form your own culture and biases that like become pretty apparent when you step outside of your little bubble. Like I remember the first match that I watched from the server that the DPDL server. The very first match had like a copycat Jolteon, and it was like everyone was talking about how that was just like a normal thing to run, and I was like, oh man, I'm about to learn something new. And I feel like whenever you bring in new people, you get new ideas, and sometimes they don't work out, but sometimes they're really good, and your perspective is just a little too narrow. I think that
the idea is the important part.
Yeah.
The execution or the result isn't the thing. It's the creativeness, right?
Yeah. And I think obviously like we have developed an idea of what we think is good. That is probably why we have ranked ourselves at the top of our own division, because how
I want to point out I put myself at 3rd and you put yourself at 3rd.
Sure, but I think it's a bit self-reinforcing where like you're gonna pick the things that you think are good because of your experience and whatever your little community ecosystem is. But sometimes
indeed
people who come in could have maybe this team is really good and I just don't see the vision because it's not what we have been running, and I just don't see how it would work because I don't know enough about it. So I do not put Oswald and Stubborns down here because I think that all I'm trying to say is I would love to be surprised. I think that it's very easy to be surprised when we've been playing a lot.
We know you guys aren't bad. It's more that other people have played longer, potentially.
Yeah, and I also just want to keep in mind too, like that I think there's a good chance that we're just wrong about things, you and me.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a scrub. I'm bad at Pokemon. There's a reason I've never won a championship on my own.
Yeah.
It's a hard game, and there is so much to think about and so much to learn and do. And every time I do a season, I think I forget something from a previous season that I've learned and learn something new. And it, if I could just collate all of that information. But sometimes you do something hype and you're like, ooh, I'm gonna remember that one. Yeah. But genuinely, I think this is going to be a cool season. I'm excited to see how the trades come out. I think we'll probably have to do another video, maybe a couple, mid-season playoff predictions, all that good stuff. But I wonder if anyone's going to make trades because of us.
I think it'd be funny to do a video towards the end of the season where we go through all the trades and say whether we think that they were good or bad, rank how good they were for your team or not.
Yeah, definitely. And we obviously have to do an end of season recap, and we pull up our rankings and say, look how wrong we were, or yes, we're actually Nostradamus. This is what we were dead on. If we are dead on with this ranking, AJ has to get a don't get waxed tattoo.
Yeah, I think that we can talk him into that. So, everyone throw your matches so that this winds up being the ranking.
I'll even make it hard for us, and both divisions have to be totally right. But he has to get waxed and then get a tattoo that says "Don't get waxed."
Here's the recap of Plasma too, so we have them all in one place, almost. Thanks for watching, everyone. Been fun making this with you, Ikana.
You too, buddy.
Keep an eye out.